He woke to the smell of smoke and oil, to the rhythm of a city that never lets its wounds rest. Before he was a legend, he was just a man. A man with a name like any other in Zaun, a rough syllable spoken in taverns and on street corners. He worked where others wouldn't, in the mines, the dim alleys, among gears and men whose hands were stained by necessity. He learned early that survival asks for more than just courage. It demands choices you can never take back. And he chose again and again to stand between the violent and the helpless. In a city like Zaun, that simple promise makes you a leader. He kept it in small ways at first. A well-timed fist, a strong shoulder for the desperate. Soon, people were leaving their children in his care. Merchants trusted their caravans to his watch. He even took in 2 young girls as if they were his own. A furious child with quick fists, and a quieter, frightened one with a world of hurt trapped behind her eyes. He became their shelter, their father by choice. The city called him Vander, but the people who mattered, they called him the man who would not let them fall. Zaun is a city of half things and second prayers. Alchemical brine runs through the gutters, smoke hides the stars, and profit bends morals until they shatter. In this city, brilliant men did awful things for progress. One of them, a scientist, loved experiments more than empathy. He mixed steam and chemistry until flesh became just another raw material to be improved. Desperation creates strange alliances. The man who kept the girls safe needed medicine, credit, anything to stop the city from tearing his found family apart. He trusted the scientist, who offered solutions instead of sermons. A cure, he promised. A chance to be stronger, to close the door on vulnerability forever. But what arrived was not a cure. In the lab, under the glow of alchemical baths, flesh and formula rearranged. The man who once picked up children now felt the world rearrange inside his very bones. Pain unlocked things memory couldn't reach. The chemicals coursing through his blood didn't heal. They rewired. Muscles swelled with a hungry strength. Senses sharpened to a terrible, piercing clarity. The scent of blood, anywhere, called to him like a compass. In that moment, the city's protector and its brutal experiment fused into something new. A hunter, born from the melted pieces of a man and the cold precision of a machine. When he first felt teeth, he didn't remember growing. His hands still trembled with the habits of kindness, but the machine in his veins pushed forward. The lab couldn't hold him. The creature that rose broke through metal and wood like wind through paper. For a stunned breath, Zaun saw the monster in its midst. He ran into the night, not fleeing, but driven by a force that could not rest. The city that had given him a name now watched him change it with each roar. Those who once called him protector now called him a beast. Yet the core of the man was not entirely erased. As he moved through the alleys, his heightened senses found the same smells and faces that had once anchored him. The cry of a frightened child, the voice of a woman begging for mercy. These echoes tugged at something buried deep beneath the howl. When he found the scent of those he loved, the machine slowed. Their faces could pull him back, just for a moment, to the man he had been. In the battle between monster and memory, mercy and fury warred every single night. He learned his prey quickly. Zaun bred its own kind of cruelty. Gangs carving territory with knives, slavers selling breath and bone. Merchants who paid fortunes to forget their conscience. Those who stalked the weak became his focus. He moved like a storm through the narrow streets, a shadow with teeth, hunting down those whose profit came from terror. He didn't parse laws, he read harm. When the city cried out for someone to stop the rot, his presence answered in blood and bone. To many, he was justice. To others, vengeance with a heartbeat. The 2 girls he had raised grew up in the shadow of his contradiction. One took the world's anger and forged it into armor. The other's fear became a mirror he couldn't bear to look at. They learned to fight in ways he'd never taught them, and when the city's violence scraped them raw, he felt it like a fresh wound. There were nights he'd watch them from the shadows, remembering the days before the lab, when laughter wasn't edged with fear. Those memories kept him tethered. When the monster surged, the image of those girls was the only thing that could hold it back. The scientist, his creator, watched his experiment become a legend. He justified his work with words like advancement and necessity, but he couldn't deny his hand in the tragedy. A debt of blood existed between them. The hunter's rage often turned toward that lab, and on those nights, the city remembered, metal twisted into grotesque sculptures, and a howl that sounded like a city's lament. As years passed, the world shifted. The girls he'd guarded found their own paths, ones that took them far from his reach. One became a force of unpredictable danger that made the whole city shiver. The other became an enforcer with a rigid sense of justice, a warped mirror of what he'd once tried to teach. Their choices both pained him and made him proud. He had given them a reason to fight, and in their struggles, he saw his own stubborn refusal to yield. There were grim nights when the hunter almost broke completely, hunting men whose crimes were so small they'd otherwise whisper away into the gutters. He was a sentinel with no rest, his limbs remembering the lab's rhythm. But sometimes, for a brief moment, the machine would fall silent. He'd remember a kind hand on his shoulder, a shared smile. In those flashes, he was human again, long enough to keep going. One night, in the old mine where he once worked, he found the two girls again. Older, crueler, changed. The fight that followed wasn't a test of muscle, but of memory and mercy. In the heat of the struggle, he recognized a face that had once called him father. That recognition stopped him more effectively than any chain. Their faces pulled him back from the abyss. He didn't become human by will alone. He returned because the people he loved spoke to the man he had been. Today, he moves through Zaun as both myth and caution. He is a reflection of the city itself, scarred, adaptive, and fiercely protective of its weakest. When people speak his name, they say it with gratitude or with fear. He answers neither. He answers only the echo of a promise he once made, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. When the night is deep and the city holds its breath, his silhouette can be seen on the ridge above the forges, scenting the air. For a few long seconds, he stands with the old rhythm of a man who loved, lost, and became something else because of that love. Then he melts back into the streets, hunting, saving, punishing. In a place like Zaun, such balances are the only justice people can afford. He walks them all the same, man, machine, and monster, bound by a stubborn refusal to let the people he cares for live in fear. Thank you so much for watching. If you were moved by this story, consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon for more deep dives into the lore that shapes our favorite worlds. We'll see you in the next one.